Commander, it's just 2,400 subs to 40,000 subscribers on the DPA War channel. So, do your part. Press the subscribe button and you'll go on to the SITREP right now. Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 512 for the 20th of July. And you may notice this map looks a bit different because we are now to 200% zoom. So let me know what you think. 200% zoom is yeah, I think it. Some people complain, the mobile phone users are complaining they cannot see a single thing. So now you can read. I bet you can read much better now. Any bigger, it will make this map looks ridiculous. Like this is 300%. I can't. How to read? How to know? No, it's just not possible. So yeah. So this 200% is probably it. And oh no, I broke it. Yeah. So 200%. So let's start off with missile strike. So the Russian forces continue to strike Odesa port. They really hate this place, this Odesa. They really don't like it for whatever reason. And uh-oh, give me a minute. Yeah, forgot to mute my WhatsApp. So the this is like the third night. I think it's the third night that Odesa has been hit. And then they also hit Mykolaiv. So a lot of missile strikes ongoing for the 3 nights already. So let's see how long will Russia carry on until they run out of missiles. Like the Ukrainian told me that the Russians are running out of missiles. So since last year. So let's go on to the Kherson Front. At the Kherson region, this is Kherson city. At the Kherson region, the Ukrainian forces continue their amphibious operations along the Dnipro River or the Dnipro River. They tried to land along the Konka River, but they got detected. This is probably around this region here. Around this area here. It's not too sure where exactly is the landing they attempted. But they did not seem to work out very well. And as I again have to say that I'm really not sure what is all these operations for, because it's not really meaningful. And there is also another landing. This time around is a bit more meaningful. The Ukrainian forces tried to land near Kreminna, and there's 2 boats trying to land near Kreminna, but did not work out after artillery shelled them. So this war really shows that the warfare have changed tremendously because of the use of UAVs, especially those small ones that you can just buy off the shelf. So, and moving on from the southern front, we go into the Zaporizhzhia Front. So at the Zaporizhzhia Front, at the Kamyanske sector, we have some fighting reported. According to SITREP map, they say that the Russian forces managed to capture this area here, where I say that the Ukrainian seems to have captured. He reported that the Russian forces have recaptured part of this region here at Kamyanske. And over at this Petikaki region, this is Petikaki. There is reports coming from Myro Shinikov. Myro Shinikov is a pro-Ukrainian source. Nowadays I don't really have much information to post from him because he don't really have much information to really talk about. His informations are all super vague and very supportive of the Ukrainians. So the Russian forces attacking from the south, and he's the only one that reported this. However, this probably they don't work out as well. And there is reinforcement being reported at Lukove. This is reported by the pro-Russian source Raiba. Assault group from the 128th Brigade has arrived at Lukov. So this area here. So this is the Kamyanske sector's information. Moving into the Orikhiv sector. The only intel, the intel coming from the north of Robotine suggests that coming from Ryba and Deep State UA, both the pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian sources suggest that the Ukrainian offensive operations towards Robotine is still ongoing. According to Ryba, they reported that the attack comes in the night, and however they were repelled by artillery. So they also reported that the attack intensity towards Robotine seems to have reduced. This probably due to exhaustion of the manpower and equipment over this area here, where the Ukrainians had launched the attack from Novodanilivka towards Robotine. There is some probing reported on the in between the two sectors, the Huaypole sector and Urikhiv sector. The Ukrainian forces probe Sharifne region as well as Merne region. We do not have information coming from the Russian Defense Ministry, so probably they are trying to see if they can attack from a different line over at this area here. So that's all from the Orikhiv sector. Nothing else from the Huaypole sector. Moving into the Velika Novosilka sector of the Zaporizhzhia Front. The Russian forces launched a counter-attack north of Pryyutne. This is Pryyutne, and the Russian forces launched a counter-attack towards Novodarivka. And information coming from Russian Defense Ministry, they reported that the way their report is more like a defensive kind of thing. They say that the Ukrainians have a recon group and two groups of infantry, and they kind of engage them. They did not really specifically mention that they are on the offensive. However, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that the Russians are attempting to recover lost position north of Pryyutne. And then we have information coming from the pro-Russian source. Ryba reported that the Russian forces counterattack in the direction of Novodarivka. And Remelin, another pro-Russian source, reported that the Russian forces counterattacked north of Pryyutne, and they managed to capture some Ukrainian positions. So there's a few theories coming from different sources, but largely all corroborating each other that the Russians indeed have launched an attack towards Novodarivka, and the Ukrainian forces seems to have engaged in major fighting against them. So not sure if if it changed any front line over here. Moving over towards around the Makarivka and Staromayoske sector, the Russian forces, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, managed to eliminate some recon forces from the Ukrainians in the western part of Makarivka. So the Ukrainian forces were trying to scout this area here, and the Russian forces kind of took them out using artillery after spotting them. Ukrainian forces themselves are still on the offensive. They are reportedly attacking at Staromayoske, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, as well as Uruzhaine. So the Ukrainian forces continue their offensive in this area here, as I mentioned before. Staromayoske and Uruzhaine is a primary objective of the Ukrainians over at the Velika Novosilka sector of the Zaporizhzhia Front. And that's all from the Zaporizhzhia Front. Moving into the Donetsk Front. At the Donetsk Front, we have interesting information. At the Voleda region, the Ukrainian forces allegedly launched an attack on the eastern part of Voleda. Information coming from Ryba, the pro-Russian source, reported that the 36th Motorized Rifle Brigade and 155th Brigade of the Pacific Fleet of the Russian forces were engaged by 3 tanks and 3 infantry fighting vehicles. And they managed to repel the attack. But it's interesting that the Russian forces are still in the area around Voleda. And according to the pro-Russian mapping, the dachas are largely under Russian control, with the Ukrainians holding the fortress city of Voleda. So this is the first major fight around Voleda in quite some time already. And moving on to the Novomikhailivka region, the Russian forces allegedly were attacking near Novomikhailivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. And there is also fighting reported at Marinka. As usual, both the Russians and the Ukrainians say that they are the one defending. So information coming from the Russian Defense Ministry and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Further up north at Krasnohorivka, there is information of fighting in the south of Krasnohorivka. This is reported by Surya Maps. It might be a delayed report of what we have reported previously about the fighting in the south of Krasnohorivka around 2 days ago. But in his mapping, as well as some geolocations done by Deep State UA, which I saw, confirms that this is actually the Trudovskaya mine, and this mine area has been captured by the Russian forces in their reported fighting south of Krasnohorivka, and so this is the progress of the Russians in this area here, and so far the Ukrainian source Deep State UA reported that the Russians cannot have a foothold over here. They say that the Russians did not hold a foothold, but no, they are pro-Ukrainian source, so no, of course they are not going to say that the Russians have a very good success around here, but it is quite significant because every progress around this front line here is pretty significant, as these are all heavily entrenched positions. Over at the Avdiivka Front, this is Avdiivka city. In the southwestern part of Avdiivka, we have fighting reported at Nevelsky. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported that the Russians attacked at Nevelsky area. Over here, the Ukrainians, however, attacked at Pervomaisky. Information coming from Russian Defense Ministry as well as Deep State UA. Deep State UA did not mention who is attacking, but the Russian Defense Ministry said that it is the Ukrainians. So it's the Ukrainians for now, because Deep State did not mention much. So over at the northern part of the Avdiivka city, we have some information from Surya Maps reporting that the Russian forces have captured certain grounds west of Kamyanske. So this is Kamyanske. The Russian forces have managed to capture this area here, improving their buffer zone again. This area here was previously I think captured by the Russian forces already, so they basically reclaim where they have previously captured. But the attack, the latest report is the attack is coming from the Ukrainian side. Information coming from the Russian Defense Ministry reported that the Ukrainian forces attacked at Vasily, and this attack also involved Krasnohorivka over here. So the Ukrainian forces are attacking the northern part. It's part of their Avdiivka offensive to try to cut off this this salient here that the Russians currently have in the north of Avdiivka, that is putting a lot of pressure on the Ukrainians to defend this last road out of Avdiivka. So moving on from the Avdiivka front, we go into the New York front. There is no updates or information about any fighting around here. We go into the Bakhmut front. This is Bakhmut city, as you can see, and it's full of icons now. Very dense of pimples. Over at the southern flank of the Bakhmut front, we have geolocation of Ukrainian forces at this position. This actually changes the front line, which I actually adjusted, but the map is just very broken. It keep having errors. So the Ukrainian forces managed to confirm they're securing all the way around this line. However, the Russians have very strong lines around here, as this geolocation comes with the destruction of a Ukrainian armored vehicle. There is also fighting reported southwest of Klishchiivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, where the Russians tried to counterattack in the southwestern part of Klishchiivka. The Ukrainian forces line held. The Ukrainians are themselves attacking in the west and the north of Klishchiivka. So information coming from Deep State UA of the fighting in the north and the west, and how to know who is on the offensive is because the Russian Defense Ministry has reported that the Ukrainians are the one that is on the offensive over at Klishchiivka. The pressure continued to mount for the Russians, as the Ukrainians are attacking from both sectors, and the Russians do not have the high ground. Any information about the Russians managed to recapture the high ground is false. I do not have any information that suggests this is true. Any of such information is belated. It was actually a few days ago where the Russians managed to counterattack, but the Ukrainians have since managed to strangle the Russian forces at Klishchiivka. So that's all from the southern part of the Bakhmut front. Over at the northern part of the Bakhmut front, there is information coming from the pro-Russian source. Ryba reported that the Ukrainian forces managed to advance near the village of Yakhine, which is actually here. The Ukrainian forces continue their push over in this area here in the northern part of Bakhmut. And moving on, we have no more information of any fighting elsewhere. Into the Siversk Front. At the Siversk Front, we have fighting reported at or near Bilohorivka, which is over here. This information coming from the Russian Defense Ministry. And we also have no, we don't have anything. So that's all from the Siversk Front. This is Siversk. Moving into the Kreminna Front. At the Kreminna Front, within the Serebrenske Forestry, we have Russian Defense Ministry reportedly eliminated probing force from the Ukrainians. And the Russian Defense Ministry then later also in the separate report coming from the Center Group of Forces reported that the Russian helicopters also thwarted some assault groups of the Ukrainians in near the Serebrenske Forestry, whatever that's supposed to mean. The Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source, reported that there is Russian offensive actions within the Serebrenske Forestry. So there is some Ukrainian actions moving probably within this place, but the Russians are mainly the one on the offensive in this forestry region. Over at Dibrova, on the northwestern part of Dibrova, the Russian forces reportedly have repelled Ukrainian attack. It was two different attacks reported by the Center Group of Forces, which means the Ukrainians are attacking in this area here, trying to probably break into the line where the Russians have this important road north of Dibrova that leads all the way to Zaporizhzhia and Toske. And further up north, we have fighting around in the Svatove Front. At the Svatove Front, the Russians suddenly launched a massive offensive in this area here. This comes after the Russians seems to have abandoned their Kupyansk offensive, with the exception of around the Svatove region. The Russians' offensive over this region expanded from just the Kamyanske region over to include Raihorodka. Raihorodka. This area is what is this? Zerelny. Zerelny is very rare. We hardly hear about it, and also at Novosibirsk. So it is a very big frontline push from the Russian side from in multiple vectors. And over at the Kamyanske region, as you can see, Deep State UA reported that the Russians attacking at Novosibirsk, Zerelny, Raihorodka, and Kamyanske. So this information is not Russian propaganda. This information is a Ukrainian propaganda. No, information, intelligence of Russian actions over at Raihorodka, Zerelny, and as well as at Novosibirsk. The information about Novosibirsk is very vague now. There is some rumors that the Ukrainian forces have withdrawn out of Novosibirsk, and Russians have still not exactly captured it. They have very advantageous positions within the Novosibirsk region, but I would say we have to wait for more information. So that's all from the Svatove Front. Moving into the Kupyansk Front. At the Kupyansk Front, we have Ukrainian probing over at Ivanivka. This is actually over here. So there's some probing actions around here. The Russian forces managed to take it out. And over at the Svatove region, previously we have a lot of reports of fighting around the Liman Pershi region with what's that called? Remilin reported that there was this massive attack in multiple directions against Sinkivka. I think this is this information probably might not be very accurate because it was not mentioned by anyone else. And then but we do have more confirmed information that the Russian forces do have managed to capture most of the western part of Sinkivka, as well as the western part of Liman Pershi. So the Russian forces are still continuing to push here. Information from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported that the Russians attacked southwestern part of Svatove. So this is Svatove, and the Russian forces, this is south, this is west, southwest. So the Russian forces is attacking in this direction. Probably is just maybe focusing on the forest region here. No, maybe they're attacking through the forest to try to control this river forestry thingy places where the Ukrainians may have some defensive positions around here that is blocking the Russians. So that could be the case of what is currently happening over the Avdiivka region. And we do not have any other information about Kharkiv Front nor the border between Russia and Ukraine. There is some other information that is not mapped. The Belarusian special forces will be training with the Wagner forces for 3 days in one of their training camps. And there is also rumors of coming from the hacker groups, Russian hacker groups, suggesting that the drone attack that hit the Crimea bridge comes from a container ship. So there is this very suspicious container ship that travel up here, and then they possibly launch the suicide drone, and then it actually continued to travel and then hit the target over here at the Crimean bridge. And this is also why we have the Russian forces declaring that the entire southeastern part of the Black Sea, which is actually here, or probably all the way to the border, I'm not sure, but this is Georgia, so they have, I don't think they can go there. But this entire area here is now a no-sail zone, probably because of such reason. So this is probably going to affect naval commerce, in this area here, because there is a lot of commerce between all these different ports, from Georgia to Turkey, from Turkey to Russia, Russia to Turkey, and Russia out through the Istanbul region out of the straits. So it's kind of unclear how the Russians are going to deal with this, because the drone cannot possibly come from this area, go around and attack the bridge, because this is just too far. So the entire theory that it was launched by some container ship that have the capability of launching the drone might actually be accurate, and the Russian Navy is going to have some trouble trying to monitor very, very closely of all the container ships that is traveling around the Black Sea. So there's also other information. There's also a lot of NATO how to say, electronic intelligence aircraft flying all around here. They're flying all around here, and including Italian aircraft, French aircraft, and it's just kind of like it's like a four, how to say, some kind of a indication that another Ukrainian attack might be coming soon, or they might be just monitoring the Black Sea Fleet operations around the Black Sea to try to figure out what is the intention of the Russian military. So anyway, let me know about this 20 times zoom, 200, actually not 20 times, 2 times zoom is a 200% zoom. Does it make it more comfortable for you? And for those that are watching this on TV and on the monitor screen, let me know if you can tolerate this kind of zoom. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.